Microsoft is teaming up with news and other content providers in Europe to back new policies that would make online platforms pay for publishing their content. The tech giant is already supporting similar legislation in Australia. Meanwhile, Facebook, which opposes the proposed law, has lifted its block on Australian news outlets after negotiations with the government. But as Mobin Nasser reports, many Australians are already looking elsewhere for ways to stay updated.
Facebook has refriended Australia. Last week, the social media giant had restricted access to news in the country over a proposed law that would force it and other tech companies to pay local content providers. But following negotiations with the government, it's rolled back the ban.
And Australian news will be restored to the Facebook platform. And Facebook has committed to entering into good faith negotiations with Australian news media businesses in seeking to reach agreements to pay for content.
Australia says it still requires Facebook and others to pay for news content, but it's giving them 2 months to decide the terms of their agreements with local outlets. Tech companies will be able to avoid such deals if they show they're making a significant and sustainable contribution to local journalism. And they'll be given more freedom to decide which news organizations to partner with. Although the recent news ban helped Facebook push through these amendments, analysts say it's come at a cost.
Facebook's damaged its reputation. It's damaged its reputation amongst advertisers. And at the same time, the alternative platform, Google, has actually, did the right thing. It came up and did a whole bunch of commercial deals at the last minute.
Many Australians say they're already moving away from the social media platform.
I think in general, for younger generations at least, Facebook is kind of dying out a little bit. Like, I noticed that it's more like my parents' generation.
I think Facebook, well, in my view, might have misjudged this one, and I think the market's going to respond pretty strongly with competing places to get news.
I was kind of shocked and a little bit disappointed that they had done something so petty and silly, and they thought that would get their way. I just thought they were being ridiculous. So in relation to that, I kind of just didn't really want to associate with them anymore.
As the European Union mulls similar changes to its digital policies, software behemoth Microsoft has teamed up with European content providers to develop a system to trace the origin and evolution of digital content. If Facebook continues to push back, its social standing may suffer even more damage. Mobin Nasser, TRT World.
For more on this, Pierluigi Paganini joins us now from Rome. He's an analyst and founder of the cybersecurity firm Sybase. He's also an adjunct law professor at Luis Guido Carli University. Welcome back to the program, Pierluigi. Now, when Facebook decided to block news content in Australia less than a week ago, we know it was a PR disaster for the company because it not only blocked news content, but it also blocked pages belonging to the government, charities and even emergency services. Why then do you think has the company decided to reverse its position?
I believe it's a business matter. Tech giants are aware they are playing an important game. Social media platforms play a crucial role in modern publishing and in news sharing process. I believe that disadvantaging news organizations that provide them the content could have a significant impact on the overall industry.
We know that for a growing number of people, Facebook is the only way they consume news these days. So when the company suddenly decided to block that news content from the sites of Australian users, do you think this was an example of big tech companies really taking advantage of their growing market dominance?
Yes, it's very dangerous. Such kind of decisions are the expression that something is going wrong in an unregulated market. That's why we urge a global regulation to avoid that the tech giants could abuse their market position, their predominance. This decision represents a threat to democracy.
Let's look at what these tech companies would argue, because the news content that appears on Facebook is posted and shares only by its users. Facebook developers don't do it themselves. It's simply those who sign up to the accounts that distribute this content. So Facebook has argued that the Australian legislation essentially penalises the company for simply hosting this content that their users share. Do they make a point here?
I believe that in this specific case, the problem is we need to pay who is producing the content. This is the only way to ensure the quality of the information and independent contribution. That's the pillar of the democracy, in my opinion.
Now, we know many governments around the world are closely watching the Australian example. In fact, the Australian Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, says that its government's fight to regulate tech companies is a proxy battle for the rest of the world. Do you think we'll see similar laws either being proposed or implemented in countries around the world?
For sure. I think that other governments could use a similar approach to manage such kind of situation. But anyway, at least in Europe, we need, let me say, a community strategy that have to be imposed by the European Commission. But the response is yes, other governments could use a similar approach.
Yes, and we know the European Commission has been very active in trying to really break up the market dominance of these big tech companies. Do you think if they start small, perhaps looking at news content on these sites, that it might be a better approach for the European Commission rather than trying to look at the bigger picture?
Probably the biggest issues that the community, let's say, for example, the European Commission has to approach is to be sure that the content that has a specific quality have to be paid. Without this mechanism that need the collaboration of tech giants, I believe that we face serious problems in terms of democracy, in terms of who is able to control the information. So it's essential, in my point of view, that we put in place a specific strategy that must be recognized on a global scale in order to manage the quality and the content news.
So do you think then that companies like Facebook and Google and even Microsoft, are they learning their lessons that they simply can't take advantage of their market dominance and they have to be a bit more sensitive perhaps to what some governments are asking for?
Well, it's my opinion that these organizations, these companies are making, let me say, a sort of tuning. So they are searching for the best balance between a growing market that represents for them a huge opportunity from a business point of view, and on the other side, how much effort they have to spend, which kind of information, which kind of legislation, which kind of activity they have to spend in order to have the best efforts and to increase their earnings. So it's my opinion that currently they are approaching the problem, making some tuning activity in order to find the best compromise from their business opportunity and a market that needs regulation in order to grow. And they know very well that they have to defend also, let me say, the organization that provide them the content news.
Okay, Pierluigi Paganini, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you again for joining us on the program.